Good morning, Hank.
Hello, Stanley.
Good morning, everybody.
I will. Morning, Saul.
Morning, Stan.
Anything exciting happening? I haven't checked the news this morning.
Not that I noticed.
Sometimes you don't want to check the news.
Good advice.
What's the latest from the Ukraine? I heard that they said the Ukraine actually is losing. I don't know. Who knows today with propaganda going on? What's true and what's not?
Everybody loses in war. There are no winners.
You're right. I always say war is a failure of diplomacy.
On this last attack that Russia put on Ukraine, there were a couple dozen civilian casualties, fatalities. And one interesting thing that I heard was that the Ukrainians were able to stop 21 out of 26 cruise missiles that were launched into Ukraine. And I'm just thinking what the damage would have been done if the Ukrainians had not had their defensive weapons that they have to keep down those number of cruise missiles. I just caught that out of the corner of my ear, but I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, I saw the same thing, except I remember that it was 21 out of 22 or 3, which is even more demonstrative of how effective the defenses are.
Yeah, well, that could very well be.
And those defenses were some of the things that we have recently provided, which were debated hotly in some quarters.
Do we have beam weapons like high-powered lasers that can shoot down airborne things? If we do, that really stops a lot of airborne stuff because you don't have to aim ahead or anything. You just aim right at it and zap it.
I don't think so.
I heard we do have high-powered beam weapons, but I haven't heard it confirmed. But there'd be like multi-megawatt laser systems. And although it seemed to me I saw some on the back of a ship that I saw on internet somewhere. Morning, Dan. Hi, David.
Hi, David. Thanks for getting the minutes out.
I got a couple updates from people to just correct exactly the words they want used. So I'll probably be putting out a revised one. But I decided to send it out in PDF for when we eventually posted it. I think it's better to have it as a PDF as opposed to a fully editable document.
I agree.
And sorry for not being here last week, but apparently it was Earth Day and I'd signed up to go and help clean up Formosa Slough or whatever it was. And so I got it taken. That time was taken.
Understand. The minutes were a little delayed this month. We like to see them out earlier, so I do
Well,
feel obligated to mention that.
Yeah. Okay. I can assure you, you are invited to like away. I will get them when I get them.
Or to quote Stan's former words, if he'd like to do the minutes, he's welcome to do so.
So what did we discuss last week? I was not there and always a little bit interested in what goes on.
It was about OneDrive, I think.
Oh, okay. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I was going to give a little talk to my people at the Shepherd Center about the difference between Google Drive and OneDrive and iCloud and other third-party things like Sync. They all sort of do the same thing, and it's unfortunately it gets to the point of saying, well, which of the cloud services did I put something on?
Yeah. Walkabout has been using Sync for the last few years to share files. And that's been working pretty well.
Yeah.
I was interested in the OneDrive feature that he mentioned, showing two people having the same file open at the same time, which I had not seen that mentioned anyplace else before. But I'm not inclined to switch over to OneDrive. I'm satisfied with Sync as our file sharing system.
Yeah, that feature had to do with collaboration when you have people collaborating on a document.
And it usually requires some smarts of the programs you're using to know, what parts of the file they're allowed to write. And I remember from many years ago doing software development where there's lots of developers working on things. Eventually you get collisions and then you have to have some method of resolving the collisions.
David said that you were interested in what happened last week. You know that every week almost every week, we end up with a recording of the entire session on the website. And is on the website.
And I think about that, and then I think about listening for an hour or so, and figured that maybe here I can get a 10-second summary.
When I was absent a few weeks ago, because I had another commitment as you did, David, I did play the video, but I did it at 2 times the speed and it worked much better.
Yeah, but you can shift that back and forth when you get to something you really want to listen hard to.
I've noticed that nowadays a lot of the YouTubes will have little markers where they basically give labels for different sections. And I will, if it's a 30-minute YouTube, I will sometimes go and look at all the section titles and say, oh, that's the part that I'm interested in, just move straight there.
Slowing down the video is a great feature. I like that, particularly with this guy that we frequently hear on YouTube.
Kevin.
Yeah, he talks so fast that it's good to slow it down.
Yeah.
What's wrong? Can't you talk very fast yourself?
I was just going to comment that today's presenter, Theo Joe, is a little rapid talker himself.
Before we get away from the transcript or you all are, should be aware that if you view your transcript, you have a way of saving a voice to text transcript of the session. So you all have the capability of saving the words said, which is valuable in a discussion of our meetings. I usually save a transcript if anybody's interested, but you can save it yourself. If there's any question about it, I would address it, but
Actually, that's something that I probably should do for our board meetings. That way I can actually at least find out what the voice to text thought people were saying.
yeah, it also has the value of being able to search on key words. So trying to read through the entire transcript is very intimidating. But if you remember certain words that might have been mentioned in an interesting part of the discussion, you can search for those words. And it's possible to find key parts of the transcript by using the find function in a text editor.
I use a Kindle for reading most of the time. And the nice thing about a Kindle is you can do a word search. So if you're looking for something anywhere in the entire book, you just type in the word you want to search for, and it brings up probably dozens of citations for it. But it's a really good feature and much better than looking into an index of a book. Much easier.
That is one of the things that the electronic age has given us, that some people, young people, probably don't even realize what a nice feature it is because they've never seen it any other way.
Yep.
One reminder on saving the transcript is if the meeting closes before you save it, it doesn't get saved. So it doesn't save it unless you intentionally tell it to. So if you're inclined to do that, you might open up the transcript window, and down at the bottom it says save transcript. You might save it, and then as you're getting toward the end of the meeting, you might click on that again and say save transcript again to catch the more recent comments. But it does not save automatically on ending the meeting.
It's 7:36 here in Hawaii anyway. But we have only 16 participants so far. I'm going to wait another couple of minutes before I start Theo Joe.
And interestingly enough, the transcript just translated Theo Joe as Ojo.
Yeah, it can be humorous at times. Just goes to show that we're still smarter than AI.
Not much smarter.
Depends on the field.
I was at an electronics show earlier this week up in Delmar, and there's a lot of AI going on up there in electronic materials and processes. I was surprised.
Why were you surprised?
Well, I didn't think that that particular industry had picked up on AI that quickly, but I'm way behind the times.
That is unfortunately all too easy to happen.
Trying to keep up with technology nowadays is essentially impossible unless you're very, very specific about what technology you want to look at. But being a generalist, it's very difficult.
Yes. Being a pedestrian observer, one only sees the highest of the highlights.
Well, we're up to 19. I think we'll go. I am muting everyone. And then we'll start.
Scammers are going to be furious at this video. I'm going to show you how just by yourself you can shut down scam and phishing websites potentially within minutes. In this video, I'll demonstrate using a real-life scam phishing site that I found on Twitter designed to steal Steam accounts. This website had been up for 10 days already and not a single antivirus security company had flagged it yet. But within minutes, I had it flagged by multiple security companies, within hours, nearly a dozen, and within 24 hours, the website was completely blocked by Google Chrome and Edge by default, and within 2 days, the domain registrar itself had the domain name suspended and taken away from the scammers completely, which is why I'm not worried about showing the domain name here. Still though, don't go to it, you never know in the future. So if you didn't think you could make a difference as just one person, I'll show you how. All you need to do is know the various pages that security companies have for submitting malicious websites and report them. And to be clear, I didn't use any kind of special YouTuber connections to do any of this. I used the same exact public forums that everyone else would, and within 1 day, a scam site was shut down. So as an overview for this video, first I'll give you a quick explanation on how this particular scam website worked. Then I'll show you how to report a malicious URL to over 15 security companies using their pages for doing so, which will basically end up nuking the scam website from orbit. Then I'll give you the results for about how long it took each security company to start flagging the scam site. So for this scam, it's actually getting pretty common recently on Steam, where you get a message from one of your friends whose account has been hijacked though. And the scammer will ask you to go to a website supposedly for some game tournament and asks you to vote for their team. Again, still pretending to be your friend. But on that website, when you go to vote, it prompts you to log in with your Steam account. But it's a fake Steam login window. And it looks pretty convincing. All the links on this window go to the real Steam site, but if you type in any credentials, it will steal them. I've actually seen a couple varieties of this type of website. On this site, it actually pops up a separate browser window, but the URL box just says about blank. On another site, it brought up an entire fake browser window. So this apparent window with Steam as the URL showing is not even a separate browser window at all. Very tricky. Also apparently tricky is it will also steal your Steam Guard credentials. So I just put in a fake login credential and it knew that the login was incorrect. So I wasn't about to type in any real credentials, but I bet that it was actually relaying the login. And if it saw that it was asking for SteamGuard, it would have just asked for that too. And by then it had your login and your SteamGuard code. And I have to say, as far as scam domain names go, fpsleague.com actually seems pretty legit. Now, obviously, do not go to this website. Right now, it's down anyways, but you still don't want to knowingly visit a potentially malicious site. As a pro tip, a lot of scam websites use newly registered domain names. They are not up for very long before they get caught, and then they just go down. So a good way to tell if a site is kind of suspicious is to look up that registration date using the so-called whois registration data. If it's a common domain extension like .com or .net, you can go to lookup.icann.org and it will tell you the created date. If it's an extension that site doesn't work on, you can just Google the top level domain extension like .io and then whois lookup, and you should be able to find something from there. And I would actually recommend, if possible, that you just automatically block newly registered domains if you have some kind of service that allows that. Sometimes hardware firewalls use that, but one service I've been using recently that I just found out about, and this isn't sponsored or anything by the way, but it's called NextDNS, and it lets you add a bunch of filters, including newly registered domains. I'm not going to get into how to do all that yourself. If you don't know how, maybe ask a friend who's good with computers and they can probably help you. But I just wanted to mention it. I've been using it for about a week and I like it so far. All right, so now let's get to how to actually report a malicious URL, assuming you come across one. So what you want to probably do is open up Notepad and copy over the URL so you have it. And also what you'll want to do is make a note, a description that you'll submit along with the report to describe what the scam is. So for example, with this website, I wrote a quick thing that says it is a Steam phishing site. If you click on a link such as sign in with Steam at the top, then it will bring up a fake Steam login window. And something like that is detailed enough, just enough where if a human goes to review the site, they'll know why you actually reported it as malicious and they'll be able to easily tell. If possible, you might also want to take a screenshot of the scam part, like the fake pop-up window or something. That can sometimes be included with the report. And remember, if you are visiting a known scam website, open it in a sandbox. Windows has a built-in sandbox now that you can open it with. You can also use some kind of virtual machine. And there's also some websites like AnyRun, which you can use a virtual machine online. Like you just type in the URL here, and it'll give you a quick 60-second virtual machine where you can actually navigate around the site, click on stuff, so you can get a quick screenshot through that. Just, you want to be sure you're safe. And now I can go through the individual pages for all the security websites, how to report each one. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because there are several. And of course, I will put all these links in the description. All right, so the first big one you'll want to report it to is Google Safe Browsing. This will get the website blocked on Chrome. And all you have to do is put in the URL and add a little note describing it. So I'll put that in that I showed you before. And if it doesn't get auto-detected, that note will of course help them review it manually, and then you just submit it. The other big one you'll want to report it to is Microsoft and their Smart Screen filter. This will get it blocked on Edge and Windows and all that. Now you can either log in with your Microsoft account or as a guest. I don't think it really makes a difference, but either way, you'll just put in the URL and then choose phishing or the other one depending on the website, and then fill out the CAPTCHA if you're not logged in, and then hit submit. Unfortunately, there is no notes section on this site. I'm not sure why that is, but it is what it is. Also, if you're using an enterprise admin account, you can go into the Microsoft 365 Defender dashboard and you can submit a URL through that. And that does actually let you add a note, but you have to have like a business account. So most people won't be able to do that. Next, it's definitely worth trying to report the domain to the registrar and cut it off at the source. Right in the whois info, there should be the registrar's name and abuse contact email. I emailed this one and basically said the same thing as in my other notes. But when you do go to type the domain, don't do it like this. Write it something like this with the dot spelled out or whatever, because the first email I tried to send got blocked by Gmail because I guess the domain was already flagged. So you want to write it out as not a link. In this case, they actually just sent an email back saying thinking that I actually had to fill out a form on their site, so I did that instead. And about 2 days later, I noticed the registrar had set the name servers to show that it was actually suspended. And there were also some new domain statuses applied which corroborate that. Though not every registrar may show suspended name servers like this. Also, not every registrar is very good at taking down sites, but it's still worth it. But usually I found after Google and Microsoft start blocking the site that the scammers often just shut the site down themselves anyway. Next up, we have FortiGuard, and here you type in the URL for the site and hit enter or the search icon, and you'll see that here it lists the category as recently registered and a security risk group, but we want it flagged fully as phishing. So click request a review, and then for suggest a category, choose phishing or whatever the site is. And if you're able, take a screenshot of the site or the malicious part, like the fake login window. A lot of these sites block scanners that are automatic, so you'll notice VirusTotal actually returned a 404 because it must have somehow blocked it. So putting in a screenshot a lot of times will help with a manual review. Then just put in your name and email, you'll get a notification on what they do, and then for company you can just put self, and then for comment add that same note, and then hit submit. And you should see a confirmation message at the top. Next, we have BrightCloud. Just paste the site in the box that says lookup URL or IP, and then hit lookup. The reputation will probably be uncategorized or suspicious because it's a new domain, but again, we want it fully flagged. So look on the left for the request a change section. Put in the URL, then click on I would like to suggest a category. In this case, we want phishing or other frauds. Then click done, and then put in your email, and you can leave the product box empty, then add your note, and then submit, and then you should see a confirmation message. Next is CRDF Threat Lab Center. So at the top, hover over URLs, and then click Submit Malicious URLs. This form is super basic. It just asks you for your email address and a list of URLs. So don't put anything except links in here, no notes or anything. And then agree to the terms, then submit the request, and you'll see a confirmation number. Now, I have found this website often on the first attempt might not catch a scam site. I guess it's automated. So in my case, I got an email about 30 minutes after submitting it, and it says no malicious sites were found. So what you'll want to do then is follow the link in the email to the report that they give you. And then next to the URL you submitted, you can check the misclassification box, and then click continue the reporting process. Then here, they finally do let you add an explanation in this box, so be sure to put your note and that it has enough details for when they manually review it. Then just hit submit and it'll say successfully reported. In the 2 times I submitted a website and they didn't catch it at first, I appealed, and both times they then caught it after that, so you might have to do that. Next up, we have Netcraft. So just put in the URL of the site along with your email. And I actually forgot to do this, but be sure to select add further details and then add your explanation, and then hit report malicious URL. Fortunately, even without the details, it still caught it and flagged it automatically. But if they send you an email that says no threats were found, just hit check results, and then on the left, click report an issue, and then next to the URL, select misclassification, and ideally upload a screenshot for evidence. But then either put the same note you did before, or maybe add a more detailed one in the misclassification report reason, and then hit submit issue, and they'll re-review it probably manually. And I did have to do this one time, and they did catch it when re-reviewing it. As a cool side note for this website, they actually have a leaderboard for who submits the most malicious URLs the first time, and they even have some prizes if you submit enough, which is kind of cool. Moving on, for Palo Alto Networks, on the test a site page, just put in the URL and hit search, and it may have a few categories already, like newly registered, high risk, but nothing confirmed malicious or phishing. So click request a change, then put in your note, and then find the proper category and select it, put in your email, and hit submit. For ESET, they have a report a phishing page form, so put in the URL, then the note, and it also asks you for the organization being targeted. So in this case, the site is stealing Steam logins, so I put Steam. Also, some sites like this one may require you to add the HTTPS to the beginning of the URL, so just be aware of that. And then hit submit, and they don't ask you for email, so you won't get a notification if they flag it. For Trend Micro, you put the URL in the box that says, is it safe? And then hit check now. And here it just says untested and newly observed as the category. So hit reclassify request, And then here are two options. So just click the button under where it says for home users, etc. And then on this page, for safety rating, select the dangerous option. Under content, select suggest a different category. Then under internet security, choose phishing or whatever it is. Then you can just leave these two checkboxes alone, but in the box for comments, add your note to explain it, and then enter your email address and hit OK. Now hold on, because there's one more step. For this one, you need to actually go to the email they send you and click a confirmation link before they actually scan it. And also check your spam box. In my case, it was in there. So then once you go to the confirmation link, it will actually submit for scan. For Bitdefender, on this page, you'll want to scroll down to the submission form, and then for category, select false negative. Then put in your name, your email, in our case, select URL and paste it in. Then for description, as usual, put the note and hit submit. And you should see a green confirmation message show up. For McAfee, this page is for checking a single URL. This box will ask you what product you're using. Just select the real-time database option. Here it's at the top. And then put in the link and hit check URL. You can see it says it's currently uncategorized. So down lower for category 1, select phishing, and you don't need to select all the categories, just one is fine. Then put in your note and hit submit URL for review, and it should show a confirmation page. For the company ForcePoint, in this box we put the URL, and I guess you can only report 5 a day or something, but anyway, hit analyze. Currently it says the threat level is low and is only classified as newly registered website, so hit suggest a different classification. In the suggest dropdown, the phishing option is actually called security, phishing, and other frauds, so select that, then put in your note. Then click submit, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of confirmation message, but it still should have worked. For Semantic, on their site review request page, first put in the URL and then hit check category. In this case, it just says the URL has not been rated and lets you fill out a form. For filtering service, there are a bunch here. I wasn't even sure which one, so I just picked Norton Safe Web, but I kind of assume that they're going to propagate the malicious URLs to all their products anyway. For category, it's just phishing, and then put in your email address, and then in the comment box, your note, and hit submit for review. To submit to Spam 404, this one is very simple. Just put in the URL and the explanation note, and that's it. Hit submit. For Kaspersky, on their threat intelligence portal, go to the lookup tab, then put in the URL and hit enter to search. We can see it is not categorized. So on the right, hit the submit to reanalyze button. And here, just put in your email address, and then it lets you put in a comment to explain. So then hit submit, and you should see a little confirmation message. Next up, we have Cisco's Talos Intelligence service. This one actually requires signing up for a free account to report a URL, but it is actually probably worth it because Cisco is such a big company with so many customers. Anyway, on the Reputation Center page, you can put in a URL or even just an IP, and then hit the search icon. And here it says unknown reputation and no category, but if you have an account, you can click the buttons to submit a reputation or categorization ticket. However, one thing to note is for the categorization option, very strangely, there is no option for phishing or malware or anything. It's just regular website categories, which I thought was weird. So instead, what you have to do is go to the reputation change option, and then in the dropdown here, select suggest threat category, and then it lets you select stuff like phishing and malware. So do that, and then you set the platform to Talos Intelligence, which is the only option. Then in the comments, put the usual note and click submit. Finally, I want to mention this one called Fish Tank. Now this would be a good one to submit to because it's used by so many other services. However, they require an account to submit, and for some reason they have registrations closed right now. So I guess just check back on this one, or if anyone knows a guy who knows a guy so I can get an account, maybe just send me an email or DM me on Twitter or something. Oh, and one final thing though, you can actually sign up for a VirusTotal account, and that will let you vote on a website and also leave a comment. So if anyone scans it, maybe even if it isn't detected yet, they can still see your comment about it. So now after reporting all of these, we can get into the results for what happened. I'll show you the VirusTotal scan results, and then I'll show you as accurate as I can the exact amount of time that each of these security vendors took to actually flag it. So I rescanned on VirusTotal after about an hour, and awesome, there were already 4 vendors that were flagging it. But surprisingly, even though VirusTotal had Google Safe Browsing showing it as clean, on the actual Google site to check a domain status, it does say it had flagged it as unsafe, and it was the same day, so I'm sure it was from when I submitted. And this was even the case 6 hours later, and even the next day, VirusTotal is still saying it was clean. So good to know that VirusTotal can be pretty delayed with some vendors. And do realize that VirusTotal won't actually show the latest results unless you hit rescan. You can see here that it'll say it was scanned hours ago, and it'll just show you those results. Also, if you do a scan and it flags something new, be sure to also rescan it on both the HTTP and HTTPS version of the URL. For some reason, VirusTotal shows these as separate, and you will want people to see the flagged results whether they look on the HTTP or HTTPS version, and they might not know that you have to actually rescan it. After rescanning a couple hours later, 8 vendors were now flagging it, and after about 6 hours, 10 of them were flagging it. Now, I do want to mention something that I just learned, that even if Google Safe Browsing flags a website, which apparently it did very shortly after I submitted it, it won't be blocked in Google Chrome right away unless you have enhanced protection on in the settings. I just had standard protection on, and you'll notice it says Chrome may send URLs to Safe Browsing and checks if the malicious URL is stored locally, but for enhanced protection, it checks all URLs, I guess. So you might want to enable that. I will say, however, that by the next day, within 24 hours, it was blocking with standard protection by default. And also Microsoft Edge was blocking it with their smart screen. I'm not sure exactly how long this took because I was asleep, but it was within 24 hours. But I will note that even though both Google and Microsoft were blocking these, VirusTotal still was not showing them as being flagged when I rescanned it, which was kind of weird. Anyway, I was doing my best to keep track of exactly how long each security company would take to flag it, whether by sending an email or just showing up on VirusTotal, and here are the results. Though I will point out that it seems that for this site, fortunately, a lot of the companies were able to automatically detect it, I guess with an automated scam. Other times it may take longer if it had to be manually reviewed to confirm, so don't necessarily expect some of these instant results, but it could be. So now, hopefully you all are scam website destroying machines, and the next time you see a scam website and it just fills you with rage, you can do something about it and take them down. Definitely give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I put quite a bit of testing and work into this one, so I'd really appreciate it. Also, let me know down in the comments if there's maybe other services that let you submit to it that I didn't mention that it would be good. Or you can let me know if you did this and it worked out. And if you want to subscribe, I try to make videos about twice a week, Wednesday and Saturday, so it should be worth it. If you want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is one where I was talking about some new scams this year. So I'll put that link right here if you want to click on it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
And we're back. David.
Yes. First of all, I will say, yes, Theo Joe does talk very fast. That was quite a shopping list that we went through. At the very beginning, he was talking about something that I was not familiar with, which was the sandbox option in Windows. And I was wondering, does anyone know how that works, how you turn that on, and what it actually does for us?
Well, a sandbox would give you a area that you can open up, say, a browser in, and then go to a website that you are in question about. And what that does is the sandbox is controlled so that nothing can get out of the sandbox into your computer, so you can kind of see what's going on in there. I haven't played with the one from Microsoft of late. I have worked with them before, but it's a virtual version of Windows, a copy in there.
How does one start it up?
I understand your question. I don't know, and I have not used that one. So again, I would Google for that. I don't expect it's going to be too difficult, but just be aware that you need to have a fair amount of RAM memory in your computer, a fair amount of processor capability, because it's going to run another copy of Windows in that section of RAM in your computer. So if you're limited to computer, that's probably not something for you to use.
I just thought that was an interesting thing that I had not, wasn't in my box of tools that I normally think of.
Yeah, there's one as he mentioned that I just noticed here in Google also, that you can run things in a sandbox in Google Chrome.
Ross?
He mentioned in here a Virus Total, and I have used them quite a bit over the years. If I get an attachment that I'm wondering what it is, then I can upload that to Virus Total, and it will then go down and check to see if their list of 20 to 30 virus checking tools find a virus in that particular attachment. You can also use it to scan the URL if you're getting a link to say, you know, is that going to a bad spot? And I've done that quite a bit. It does, as he mentioned, sometimes these things take a while for them to propagate through. So you just have to be careful when you're looking at it and say, yep, I'm going to check it. But when we've seen things in there that a virus checking program in our local computers didn't find, I uploaded to them and they say, yeah, that's 4 out of 10 companies find that as bad, then we don't want to have it. What I do for an attachment also, or a link that I'm in question with on Windows, then I open it up on my Android phone, because a Windows virus cannot run in an Android phone. So if I put in that link or click on that particular attachment that says it's a Word or Excel, I can see whether or not it actually opens up or does anything within that program.
Ross, is this Virus Total a website?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Called Virus Total.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a lot of things on there that are good tools to use. The 2 other things that I do, one is I use what's called OpenDNS. Instead of using the DNS settings that come from your internet provider, I use the lookup at OpenDNS. And they have, in the past, I haven't checked within the last year or so, but usually they find or have in their DNS settings blocked web pages. And if they come up when I Google something, or it comes up and it says, you know, that there's no results found or blocked by OpenDNS, I don't mess with it anymore. I just close it. The last that I use Malwarebytes as an active program under subscription that I pay for. It's about $25 a year, I think it is. And then it also scans before it lets me see a website, whether or not that website has a bad reputation or they find something on that page that they don't like, that web page is asking for information that they don't think that the website needs to have.
How do you get to OpenDNS as being your default DNS?
So in the settings on your network card, you have to go down to the properties, IPv4 properties, and then down below that, it shows you what the DNS settings are. And it's either set up to say, get it from my, it's a default where it goes out to your router and or internet provider and pulls that information down just the same way as it pulls down the address. Or you can go in there and put a DNS settings in there. A popular one to put in there is 8.8.8.8, which is Google's DNS settings. But I found that Google allows too many things through. But if someone is having trouble within an office that I work for and say, I can't get to this particular website, if I go in and change their particular computer to have these DNS settings, then most of the time I can get there. Then I talk to my boss and say, we need to open this up or change the DNS settings. Because a lot of times Cox, Spectrum, AT&T do not have a listing for that particular name in their DNS.
A teaching moment, you might explain to people that don't know what a DNS is.
Domain name search. So basically it's a phone book for the internet. So when you type in there, Microsoft.com it doesn't go directly to Microsoft.com. It goes to your DNS server, whatever was listed in your system, and then says, okay, tell me what is the address for Microsoft.com. And then from there, it will take you then to that website.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
I see no more raised hands on the subject of this morning's presentation.
Yeah, I was going to ask about sandbox. Did we determine how we get to a sandbox?
Google.
Okay.
Yes, Dan.
I've mentioned before the way I get, when I have a suspicious site, I always boot up from a ISO image and run from that. And they can't get to that image, so you can look around and do whatever you want. And when you power the machine down, everything is gone.
I think that's pretty much what a sandbox does for you.
Yes.
Right. Where you don't have to reboot to get into it, but if you were limited on resources, yes, that's what you can do. And you can do that with any operating system, is basically say, I'm going to boot up from a memory stick or from a CD, and then do what you would normally do and see what happens. And then when you turn it off, you're right, you really shouldn't have any access to the rest. Booting from the CD or memory stick, you can still see your internal drive. So I'm hesitant to that, to say if you get a virus that says, let me just go look for any disk drives I can find in your computer and see what we can do. But most of them, you are right, are only going to try to infect the local drive C, wherever it booted from. And again, that's a memory stick, so it shouldn't be able to do that directly, or a CD. I do have a couple USB keys that have switches on the side that disable writing to it. That works okay, except that the programs or the Windows system, whatever system, has to look to see if it sees that switch. Some of them don't. So the switch isn't a perfect way. A CD, as you're talking about, would be a much better way to do that, because that they can't alter.
But so many computers don't have CDs on them anymore.
That's true. That's true. So finding out how to use the toolbox in your particular OS, sandbox in your particular OS is probably a better way to do that.
And I just looked up the Windows Sandbox, and under prerequisites, it's got various things, but it says Windows Sandbox is currently not supported on the Windows Home Edition.
Oh, interesting.
Well, there are multiple versions of Windows all of the time, and it frustrates us because we go out there to work with a system and find out that it's, say, a Windows S, which is a least expensive version of Windows, but it limits you to being able to only get programs from the Microsoft Store. There is a way to go in and change that. Microsoft hasn't made it permanent, but it's still trying to direct you back to the Windows Store, the way Apple does it. They really don't want you to get programs from anywhere else. Home Edition is a less expensive edition, but yes, it is missing some tools that you can have. Sometimes you can download and add the tools to the Windows Home. Sometimes they can't, because they say, okay, we gave you a $75 program versus a $130 program is basically the difference. We don't support, in the offices, we don't support anything other than Windows Professional. And the main difference is with that is that you cannot join a home version of the program to a Windows domain in an office. It has to be an independent computer. So you can upgrade. You can pay for the upgrade to go from any version to the next version within the Windows program itself. You go in there and say, what is my version? And you can say, I want, yes, it will allow you to upgrade. And right there, you can go straight to Microsoft through your Microsoft account and pay them X number of dollars, and then they will unlock everything else in the computer. It's all there. It's just turned off.
Question, how do we get, it's an ISO file of Windows? Is that what we download from somewhere?
From Microsoft. And you can you just type that into Google and say, how do I download Windows 10 or Windows 11? And it will take you to a website and let you download that. Now, what you do is you can use that to upgrade your computer, and they will ask you for, tell me your Microsoft Windows key. And then from that key, it can tell you what version of Windows it has, or will find that within the BIOS. That's what most from late Windows 10 computers through now, the BIOS is what has a copy of your licensed key in there. So if you go into, say, I want to erase everything in this computer, or you've put a new disk drive in this computer and you boot from your ISO memory stick CD, it will go out there and find that key, stamp it onto your version of Windows. It still has to be authenticated once you bring the computer up, but it works very well to do that.
Dan?
I use Linux. I don't use the version of Windows, but I do have a copy of Windows that will run off of a ISO, run off a memory stick, I should say.
That again, so with sometimes older computers, particularly, would they get stuck with not being able to do updates. So if I download the latest version of Windows 10 or Windows 11 to that memory stick, boot the computer to that, and tell it to upgrade that particular computer, then it's using all the keys or versions of the program. It doesn't have to wipe everything out. You can use it to upgrade that particular computer without losing all your programs and data files if it's stuck not being able to do the Windows updates.
I must be getting old. Used to be I knew how to run a computer, and now it's getting very, very complicated. I don't know how you people feel about it, but
it's much more complicated, and there's lots of little pitfalls that you can get to this point, and it worked yesterday and it doesn't work today. And I work with people all the time, and I go into there and saying, oh, well, you minimize your browser window. And they go, did what? So then I expand it out, and oh, yep, now it works like it's supposed to work. Well, it was there, but again, there's lots of ways that the computer can defeat you from doing what you want it to do. But keeping up with it, the only way that I do is I work with it every day with all kinds of little different scenarios and say, let me figure this out. And maybe this time it takes me 12 hours to figure it out, but the next time it takes me seconds because I always recognize it.
we're fortunate to have Ross Malloy, because he seems to be able to answer any question that we have. Thanks, Ross.
We appreciate getting the benefit of all of the experience that you get in your day job.
Amen.
As well as the good joke he posted in the chat today.
Oh,
That
What about
came from a
this?
customer yesterday. She says, let me tell you this joke. And so she told me that it was a different list of characters, but I Googled and I couldn't remember it all. So I just Googled for it, and it's listed as a dad joke on a couple places.
good one.
And I hesitate to put it up there to say, well, if you use that, that's a really long password and complicated, and it can be very difficult to figure out. I agree. But you can only use it on one place. You can't use the same password on multiple websites. It has to be a different one. Just like what the gentleman showed where the Steam was, they were trying to trick you into using your password for your Steam account to vote for a particular company that was in a game. If you happen to use that Steam account password and username for your Bank of America account, guess what? The guys will go over there and drain that account. So each website has to have its own unique password. And it gets to be difficult without having some kind of a password manager program to keep those up to date and somewhere that you can access them.
So your password manager checks to make sure you don't have duplicate passwords.
Yep, it'll tell you right away, usually. I have not seen, I use Dashlane now. And I haven't used multiple passwords the same, but LastPass used to tell me that you've got 6 compromises because you use the same password on old websites that I hadn't updated. Usually I just go in and delete those out because I don't use them anymore, but it will tell you that you've used this same password and show you the ones where you've used it multiple times.
Yeah, I ran into a situation where a website will not work with Chrome, but it does work with Edge. And I was kind of surprised at that.
So I saw that I was looking at browsing and I brought up CNN yesterday, and CNN looked funny. How come it looked funny? And I realized I was using the Brave browser, which then rendered that page differently. So if you say I've got Microsoft Word and I have Word Perfect, and I also have, say, a Mac which has pages on there, and you bring up a document that's got a lot of text information in there and a lot of formatting commands, each program will make that page look different. That's exactly what happens when you go to a website using different browsers. When you go to a website, it interrogates your computer and says, what version of operating system are you using? What updates do you have? And then we'll download to you that version of that website, that HTML file, onto your computer. And every browser is a little different. Some used to be that the banks would say, I will support this version of a browser, but not that version of a browser. So for me to tell you never use browser X and always use browser Y, I'm not going to do that. I use multiple every day. And so if you know that, if you say, I like using Edge, that's fine. I use Edge too, but be aware that says that it was written by Google for Microsoft. So it's a version of Chrome that you're running. But again, it just depends on that person who wrote the website, optimized it for that particular browser program. And if they don't have a lot of resources behind them, then that website may not be vetted on all of the popular browsers.
Yeah, the site I ran into was American Express. It would not run on Chrome, only on Edge.
I understand what you're saying. So there was some security requirement that either Google Chrome had updated their security requirements, and American Express had not upgraded their website to that for Chrome on their system properly, or the other way around, that they had upgraded and the browser had, excuse me, the website had upgraded their security and Chrome didn't accept it, but Edge did.
Yeah, either that or Microsoft paid them to make it work on only on Edge.
Well, or a long time ago, when we used to have a program called SuperCalc.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, what is it? The work's not done until Excel won't run. So they would make changes to the operating system and make changes so work wasn't done until you could defeat the other guy's program in your system.
I think it's time to see if anyone has a question or a comment or anything that they want to put on into Q&A. Hands, anyone?
Yeah, I do have something, didn't raise my hand, but when I get into some websites that require security to say I'm not a robot, some of these checkers are really difficult for me. One I ran into said, replace a particular puzzle piece or two puzzle pieces, and I could not figure out how in the world you go find the puzzle piece that's supposed to be put in there. So, some of these robot checkers are easier than others, and some of them completely baffle me. I don't know if any of you folks run into that problem or not, but
Ross is nodding his head.
Yeah, most of those I can look and figure it out and do it very quickly. Some of them I was working with yesterday where that showed you a hand with two fingers out, and it had to show which direction the hand was pointing, and then you had to manipulate a picture to the right of that so it faced that same direction. And it took the third time until I could get it to the right position. Most of those will let you retry multiple times. And I think a lot of those are looking to try to see how fast you are able to respond. Because if it's a computer that's on there, it's trying to optical character recognition of that page, and says like, show me all of the buses. And the buses can be different colors and in different orientations. And it's difficult for a computer to take that piece of the bus and say, oh yeah, that's a full bus. So that's why they put it up there. They're trying to do things again to keep the bad guys out and the AI programs that are out there trying to break in on things. And to say which one is better or which one is worse, you have no choice on that. You just have to keep trying. Some of those that come up with letters up there and you have to type in those letters will give you the option to hear those. So then you can turn on that speech capability, hear the characters, write them down, and then type them in. So they do have ways around those, or helps, I should say.
Joan?
Yes. Okay. I bought a battery for the first time for a laptop. And the first thing it said was to charge it to 100% and then power it down 3 times. What's the purpose of that?
I don't know. I have never seen where it says charge it. I said you do have to charge it up, of course, but as far as turning it off 3 times, does that mean that you just let it discharge until it's all the way down?
Yes, and they tell you to do it 3 times.
So we used to have batteries called nickel cadmium NC batteries, and those had what was called a memory in there. If you only used the top 10% and then recharged it, then you only had 10% of that battery capable. So what you had to do was go in there, just like what you're saying, of conditioning the battery, of allowing it to charge all the way up, leaving the laptop on, and then just let it completely discharge and then charge it back up again and then do it. I haven't seen that with lithium batteries. So a laptop battery should be lithium, and I don't understand why you would have to do that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
if I may interject, even with lithium ion, what you're doing actually is training the battery management system in the laptop. It's not so much for the battery itself. It's trying to see how long the battery will last, and you're training it.
Oh, okay. So now I can ask you a second follow-up. As to plugging a computer in with a battery that's 100% and new, what's the proper way to look after a laptop and a battery? Do you let it run down gradually? Do you charge it every night?
So I had that same question not too long ago, and about the battery for my cell phone. What do I do with that? Every night I put it on the stand and let it wirelessly charge overnight. I notice in there and on some posts that I find on the internet that most of the cell phones now have what's called an adaptive charging. So they keep track of when I am using the phone and when I am charging it. So if I'm usually using it for say 20 hours and only plugging it in and let it charge for 4 hours, then the phone knows that it has to let that charge as fast as it can. I have mine off for 12 hours, 15 hours before I use it again. So it can say, well, okay, we can use a much lower rate of charge to charge that battery up. And I would expect that a newer laptop does the same sort of thing, is slow down the charge because heat will kill any battery. Now, in general, on laptops, plug them in, use them every day as you want. If you never take it out away from your home, leave it charged in. You do not need to disconnect it. You don't need to condition it anymore. But as it was mentioned, that the battery monitoring system, when you unplug it and says you have X number of hours left, if it only goes say 20 minutes and then turns off, and it said it was going to be 3 hours, then there's a mismatch in those two, what the battery's going to last and what your system thinks it should last. And that's where you need to go through the conditioning, where it realizes that it has only the X number of minutes in that particular battery.
Well, I have to plug in my cell phone at night to charge it. I have to plug in so what do I do with this new battery in this older laptop? Do I leave it plugged in, charging?
Yes, all the time.
All the time, leave it plugged in. That doesn't hurt it.
No.
Okay, and because you're always saying, don't turn off your computers.
That's correct. Well, again, the same way with charging, just leave it plugged in. Now,
Okay.
and I always ask people when they say, well, I ask them how long that device lasts, like with the laptop battery. And if they say, well, that never leaves home, it always sits in this position, but the battery says it needs to be replaced. I'm saying, well, if you don't need to take it away, you're never really using the battery. The fact that the computer says the battery's bad doesn't matter. As long as it's plugged into the wall, it's going to work. You don't need to spend the $50 on a new battery. Just keep that money in your pocket towards your new computer.
I have a second question now. It's not about batteries. Okay, I have a Yahoo account and I have a password for a Yahoo account. And on my laptop, on my Mac, fine. But I also have a tablet. And the last time I went into Yahoo, it was as if I had a 3D. When I type in the password and the username, it seemed to have a 3D, like I was typing it in, but it was already there on top. Ever heard of that?
Well, what type of a tablet is it?
Amazon Fire.
I have not seen that, but it sounds to me that the password management program was pushing in a username and password on top of those fields.
Yes.
If it does, and you've clicked OK and you can get in, then you're just fine. If it says no, the one that's there isn't correct, then you have to erase that information out and put the new one in. How you update that information on there, you would have to talk to Amazon and or Google. I don't know how to update the password manager in an Amazon tablet.
Thank you.
Stanley,
Just to reinforce what Ross was saying about the cell phone charging, I have noticed that if I put my Pixel 6 phone on charge at night, and it knows that I usually go to bed at night, it will still be charging if I wake up early, like 4 or 5 a.m. It will still be charging because it says green on the little light instead of blue, which means it's fully charged. So it's taken advantage of the full night to trickle charge. And if I need to charge it during the day, I can put a full charge on it in a matter of a couple hours. because it knows that that's an active time. So that's evidence of the management of the charging going on in a smartphone.
I converted my Pixel 5 to wireless charging. I bought a little device from Amazon, which I plugged into the charging adapter, and then this sits on the back, a little piece of foil. And then I use a wireless charger. The wireless chargers in general only charge about half as fast as if you plugged into the bottom connection. But I wanted to keep this phone for a long time. The charging connection has always been an issue on an older phone. So that's why I wanted to change over. I am told that the USB-C, which is on the bottom of this phone, is much stronger and can withstand many more plugins than the ones from before. But wireless charging in an adaptive phone, I think, is a good way to go.
Yeah, I have put on the little magnetic adapters on all of my USB-C connectors. So I don't use the cable for transferring. I only use the cable with the magnetic hookups because they're so much more convenient.
Yep.
And less strain on the connector.
Right. I thought that was from the early Mac laptops that had that magnetic connection on the side. That was, to me, going to be saving a lot of problems of people tripping over the cord and pulling their laptop off and or breaking that connector. I don't know if it was licensing or what, but Apple went away from those. But yes, I have seen what you're talking about, adapters for those that are magnetic that will plug right into the side of, say, of a USB adapter and then give you a magnetic connection there so that it's easy to connect and easy to disconnect.
Yeah, I use those magnetic connectors. They're really great. They're certainly worth it. And they don't cost very much either. But I was interested in the inductive charging too, but I think I tried it one time and I wasn't happy with it. So I never followed up on it.
It is very particular on getting things placed right. So it may be that the wireless charger that you got didn't work well with your particular configuration on your device that you were trying to charge. I had to buy a second wireless charger to get where I didn't have a problem of getting it to it. I would come in the morning and it wasn't charged because it didn't get positioned correctly.
Yeah.
The one I have now is a little stand. Then when I put the phone in there, I see the blue light come on or the charging light come on, and I know I'm charging. So, but wireless charging is the direction things are going with no connectors to the phones whatsoever. Apple's done that, especially for their earphones, that there is no connection on the bottom of the device to use anything done on the Bluetooth earphone.
Yeah.
Will.
I just forgot to take my hand down. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say the same thing that Ross said, that the charging stand that I'm using, the blue and green light is a very good confirmation. There's no light there if there's no phone on it. If you put your phone on it and it starts charging, the light is blue. When it's fully charged, the light is green. And it's quite obvious. So I've found that I do not charge my phone by wire at all anymore. Overnight is enough. And I usually have 40 to 50% charge remaining when I go to bed at night. The Pixel 6 is a large format phone, and I think that meant they had a large battery in it, and it has very good capacity.
The phones on there, on any of them, you really should make sure that you are connecting to your local Wi-Fi most of the time, because that uses far less power than trying to connect to your cell phone's cellular connection. So it will make your battery last a lot longer if you do that also.
I got a device shipped to me by my insurance company for free, and it's a fire detection device that you just plug into the wall, and you do a connection to your cell phone. And apparently, if you have a fire, somehow it shows up on your electrical connection in your house and sends a message out to you, and also, I don't know, maybe to a fire station. I haven't checked into it further. But
You'll have to put an application onto your phone. It's not going to do it automatically. You have to have a program on your phone that
yes,
you register to that device.
I
And
do
then
have
from
that.
there, I would expect that you would have options to say, if I get this, this is what I want you to do. I want you to ring the phone. I want you to call the fire department. I want you to make that device beep, whatever it is that, the options are.
I don't know how it detects a fire.
Same way a smoke detector does, I'm assuming. And there's an optical sensor in there that looks for smoke. Or at the older ones, you had a nuclear piece in there and look for ionization. And the more that you had fire there was more ionization, and then that would trigger the device. The newer devices now, as far as smoke detectors and CO2 detectors, they have a 10-year battery in there. So you don't have to have them go off in the middle of the night because you forgot to change the battery at the yearly event that they ask you to do it.
Will,
No, that was it. Thanks.
Will,
Yes.
did you request that device?
No, they just sent it to me. Apparently, the insurance company, this is State Farm, sends it out to everybody and gives you instructions on how to install it.
My dad-
Unfortunately, mine won't install because my cell phone won't connect to it, unfortunately. And I can't force it to.
Is it a Bluetooth maybe versus being
Yeah, it is a
cellular?
Bluetooth. It is a
Well,
Bluetooth, but
Then
it
you have
takes.
to make sure you have your Bluetooth enabled on the phone.
I did, and I can find the device with my Bluetooth from the phone, but then it comes up and says, sorry, you need a certain app on your phone to do this, and
Okay,
didn't do it.
you'll have to go download that particular app to enable it to talk to that. As far as why would an insurance company send you that for free? My dad worked for a division of home savings many, many years ago. And when the smoke detectors first came out, they found that the fire rates in homes dropped dramatically. There's the reconstruction company that he worked for was way down on business because they weren't having to go out there and fix as many homes as they did before.
Yeah, they prefer to give that to you for free than have you make a claim.
I'm sure. But what's interesting is they did not suggest the location of that device. They kind of said, put it anywhere. And where I have it now, I don't know that it would detect a fire.
Have it near, have it near the kitchen, but not right above your stove.
Presumably you have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in your unit as it is.
Yes.
So you have backup, so to speak.
By the way, if you're cooking pizza, don't let a piece of pepperoni fall off the pizza because it generates a lot of smoke, and my smoke detector went off.
It is its job.
Yep.
That's why we come here for cooking tips.
Well, everybody, if you want to save your screen text, now's the time to do it because I think we're going to shut down. Let's see.
Thanks for the tip. Good reminder.
Next week is the first Saturday of the month. So we have one more before the board meeting. And if I can go over and just look for a minute. Oh, come on. Yeah, here we go. My count says that next week, if I can find it again, I'm going to play a session of 60 minutes. Had a long discussion about AI. And then the following week, we have a board meeting. And the week after that, we'll have a session on Google Maps, tips and tricks. I think that will be interesting.
I'll be looking forward to that.
All right, all. See you next week.
Mr. Hank,
Yes, sir.
wasn't I supposed to make a presentation in May on my Verizon wireless internet?
If that's on your calendar, then I have screwed up because it's not on mine. Do you have a particular date on your calendar?
I believe you mentioned, and it doesn't matter too much to me, but you believe you had suggested the week after the board meeting.
Okay, right now I have that maps, tips and tricks.
That would be the 20th of May.
Wait a minute. The tips and tricks is now on the 20th. The board meeting is the 13th. Can you do the 27th, Ross?
Yes, I can do the 27th.
Okay. I will. And what's the subject?
Wireless internet, home internet from Verizon. So I've discontinued Spectrum completely and only have the Verizon wireless box that is set up, and you just plug that in the wall and a light comes on and you plug your router in the back of that and you have internet.
And it's working fine, Ross?
So far, it's working fine. So one
Yeah,
of the
and
big
as I
things,
recall, they only charge $25 or something.
well, yes, I'm paying $25 on there. I had to upgrade my cellular plan to be able to qualify to get $25 for there versus $50 for my internet. I did get one bill. It was $130. I'm expecting next month's bill to be $100, or hopefully down as low as $80 is what I had figured from before. But one of the big things that I wanted to have was that there is at least 3 years, and as I've been seeing as much as 10 years, where they're not going to increase the price. It concerned me, made me angry when I would get my Spectrum bill, and I know a lot of the services do it, is they bump up your bill $5 to $10 every few months. And you can call up and complain, and then they will give you, say, well, this month we can drop this, and that month we can do that. But then you have to go back in 4 to 6 months and negotiate back again to bring the bill down to what it was. Even though you have not gotten any more services, they're trying to extract more money from you.
I was looking at a map of what Verizon covers, and apparently not much of the US, but certainly San Diego is covered very, very well.
Well, the internet service that I have from Verizon is not completely rolled out. There's another guy in my computer group that has it for his homeowners association he lives close to me here also. They are upgrading their networks, so it's not the same exact network as what used to the 5G for the cell phone, but it is they have channels. They can assign a particular location to me, a channel where I get Verizon. And it's kind of interesting because my account number for my Verizon's home internet is a telephone number. But there's no use for me for that telephone. It just has this device. It is very fast. I got 190 down and about 80 up, which is much faster than I had before and much faster than what I need. But again, I'm hoping to keep the bill the same.
Yeah, I was looking at Verizon 5G coverage. I live near Wesley Palms, and apparently the coverage is very good in this area. Now, I don't know, again, as you said, Ross, whether just because I have 5G, I still have this internet connection. I don't know. I'll have to check
They-
on that.
Actually, I had been checking and asked them to contact me when it was available in my area because it would say online it was not. But then a guy came door to door, which I was suspicious of to begin with, and says, "Would you like to have this?" So I said, "No, let me check in it." And I checked on it and found out it was a reasonable service and I could turn it off if I didn't need it or didn't want it, didn't work. So I went ahead and about 4 days later, I got the box and plugged it in and been working fine.
So does your phone have to be connected to Verizon also?
Well, with that, I have a $10 discount per month because I have Verizon. So do I have to have Verizon cell phone service? No, but I already did.
Mhm.
But if you're going to say, I want to get the $25 service, then you need to have a bigger cell phone plan to get you that service.
Okay. Pat,
Yeah, I've got a question about Verizon. I've got the cell phone and all that. And they sent me, but I have poor reception in the house with the cell phone. So they sent something called an LTE.
Yep.
And I'm supposed to hook it up, and at some point I will.
Yep.
Is that going to interfere with an internet or anything like that if I put that in there? If I hook that up?
Do you have Wi-Fi in your house?
Yes.
Use the Wi-Fi. You don't need that device.
Well, supposedly this device is supposed to be, because I get my phone, my calls are always, dropped.
Again, if you have Wi-Fi in your house and you connect your cell phone to the Wi-Fi, those problems will go away because then your phone calls will go across the wireless that you already have in the house. I have hooked up the device that you have there, the extender, and you have to then you have to get that in a window or somewhere close where it can see the wireless signal. And then you actually have to plug that into, we had to plug that in so it could get an internet connection to that device. So we plug a wire from wherever your internet is now into there, because then that tells Verizon, this is where in the world this tower is. And you can use that tower and all of your neighbors can use that tower because it's a mini tower that that Verizon is giving you to plug in. So again, it's nothing different than the tower that may be down the street that's 100 foot tall. It's just a little one that you have in your house. But again, you don't need to go through that. If you've got reasonable internet performance and you have Wi-Fi that works around your house, connect your cell phone to that. Your battery will last a lot longer. Your cell phone will no longer, your calls will no longer drop. It will work much better.
Well, supposedly, I am also using the Wi-Fi, but the calls still get dropped.
Then you don't have if you don't have the funnel on your cell phone, not just the bars that go in the stair steps, you need to look for the funnel. And again, if you have the cell phone that's there, you call 611 on there and say, help me, I want to be able to connect to my Wi-Fi. And they can walk you through, say, click here, do this, do this.
Okay, I'll try that. So I don't need that LTE thing.
No, it's not a bad device, but again, you already have it capable of, your cell phone has the capability of working. You have to enable in the cell phone in the settings also to use the Wi-Fi for calls. And that's just, it's a simple switch.
Okay, all right, so,
Or
but
simple setting.
I have to call them. Okay.
I would.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of your lecture there, but for that
It's
Verizon.
two different things.
Okay, well, for the Verizon internet, because I was also looking at that too.
Yep.
So when because AT&T is getting but Verizon apparently has dead zones across the US, and one of them is in Alabama where my son is. So that wasn't work. He had to switch everything to AT&T because I guess that's where they're dominant. But what I wanted to know about the Verizon that you're talking about here in San Diego, does that include cable or is that just the computer?
So that is only internet.
Only
It is not television at all. Have no television services. You can
Oh.
get television services through the internet, but that is not included with this.
Yeah,
Okay,
you-
so
You can buy
streaming-
you can buy streaming services that come through your internet,
Right,
but that's separate. That's something you're buying through
Right.
the internet.
right. And there's a couple ways, and I can talk about that too when we talk about it, the internet, the Verizon service.
So if you have a Roku, then
You're fine. Because Roku does not use your Verizon or it uses your internet connection to get to that. So that will work just fine. You're not getting anything from the cable company or AT&T as such for televisions coming through Roku.
Okay, good. Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Will?
Yeah, Elon Musk has been putting up these strings of satellites, and I assumed that was to provide internet service to somewhere. Does anybody know any details on what those satellites do and where they do it and why?
I think you need
Um,
a Starlink receiver. Is that right?
Right, right. So that's another service that you can get that's kind of like direct dish. It's another way to get to the internet. I know there was controversy over Ukraine military using that. And to begin with, they didn't want to have that service to be used by any military, but I think they have backed away and are allowing the military to use it in Ukraine. But again, it's a group of satellites that up in the sky, and you just have to have the proper receiver to get that information, again, just like direct dish.
Up here in Canada, in the rural areas, there's quite a few people using Starlink. And that's what they're talking about. It's called Starlink.
Right.
And
Right.
it costs you about 100 Canadian to have it, to get the outfit. And that would be about 60 or so American. And then you pay about 150 Canadian per month. And the people that have it are quite happy with it. But like in the rural areas where there seems to be a lot of bad zones and things like that. But although I did hear the other day that they were having problem with the satellite, but I don't know anything about that really. It's just something that someone mentioned. But like I said, they use it a lot up here. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Stanley.
I noticed Debbie is present, and it doesn't ring a bell with me, but I was wondering if Will or Hank knows who she is, or if she'd like to introduce herself, and how she heard about us or whatever.
I believe it's Debbie Martin, right?
Yes, it is. And I have been here before, and I know the first time you asked me, I couldn't really remember because I take a lot of different classes. I've known about this for a very long time, but I just recently started joining in, and I honestly don't remember where I heard about it.
We're glad to have you here. Do
Thank
you
you.
get a email announcing the meeting?
No, I just know when it is, so I bookmarked the
The link?
website or whatever you call it. I know it's on Saturday mornings at 10:30. So I've been joining in lately.
If you want to either post your email address in the chat or send me your email address, my email is Hank D for Delta, FRM, like from with no O, SD hankdfrmsd@aol.com. If you send me your email, I'll put you on the list every Thursday. You'll get
And
it.
what would that list do then? What would it give me?
Well, it gives you a link to check in directly from the email. And it also tells you the subject on Thursday, so you can decide how important it is going to be on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think what I'll do is, if I'm available, I'm just going to join in, because you never know if you're going to learn, you may learn something.
The only problem, Debbie, is if the link changes and you don't have the most recent link.
I don't know that that's going to be a problem, Will. It's not going to change for probably quite a while, if at all. Do you want to also ask the same question of Marie Flatley?
Yes, I was here last week too. And Mary Burns told me about this group.
Well, welcome. We like having you here. And again, like Hank said, if you want to get weekly emails announcing the meeting, if you send Hank Drayton your email address, he will add you to the list.
Yes, I think he has it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And I'm going to put in the chat right now.
Oh, he also sends out all those AP CUG stuff, or Saul does. So maybe you would need to want to have that information too.
That only goes to dues paying members of the seniors computer group. Some perks still left for paying their dues. So the people who are here, and anyone can send me an email and get on the list to get the invitation. But they don't become senior computer group members without paying the dues. At any rate, I have just put the link to our website on the chat. If you can't get to the chat quickly, it's scgsd.org, O-R-G. And you can find all sorts of interesting stuff on there, in particular, how to get on the invitation list right on the first page.
Interesting number. I have a number of 32 people who are not members, active members, who have joined our Zoom sessions. So that's interesting. It's almost a number larger than, or equivalent or larger than our actual membership.
I think our the list that I send it to that are not members is close to 60.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
That's just from memory. All right. Any more hands? Any more subjects? If not, it is the witching hour.
Adios.
Exactly noon in San Diego. I'll see you next week.